Welcome to Donington for the final round in the 2019 Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. And this championship battle this weekend really comes down to the wire. We've got two races, a sprint race today and tomorrow, an endurance race which is worth double the points and has a driver changeover. Now, at the front, the championship battle is between Andrew Porter in car 33, Garry LAWRENCE in car 3. But look who is also on the front row. It's James Coleman, returning to the championship after his epic battle last year with Adam Southgate. He's going to be interesting to watch to see what he does this weekend. And then back in the 924s, the championship is wide open. Any of the drivers can take it this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic battle. Let's see what happens in race one.
Garry LAWRENCE setting out his stall early with pole position. James Coleman alongside, then Andrew Porter and Nick Hull. Ed Hayes with Lee Bowden on row 3. Anthony Hutchins and Andrew Baker completing the Boxsters. The 924s headed by Pete Smith from Carl Rossin, Andy Pritchard, Chris Valentine and John Jones. Lights out for the penultimate time in 2019. Good start there from Garry LAWRENCE on the front row, but on the outside James Coleman has got his nose in front. Nick Hull in blue is up into third place ahead of Andrew Porter. And Nick, exploring the outside line, could well get past on the inside. He's trying to cut back in, but Andrew Porter looking for third place. And Nick Hull, I think, is going to find himself down in fourth. A good start from the 924s with Carl Rossin running in the invitation class. So a separate class, effectively, a lone runner as well, leading the 924s. And we'll keep tabs on him in that battle, but bear in mind that he is running in the invitation class with some non-standard parts on the car. Nick Hull, in fact, fifth now, and having a go is Ed Hayes. Great to see Ed coming back into the championship. So Ed immediately in front of us, Andrew Porter third, and then James Coleman and Garry LAWRENCE in behind. LAWRENCE is second in the championship to Andrew Porter, but the gap is very close between the two. It's 2.5 points separating Porter and LAWRENCE. There won't be any half points today because the number of starters we've got determine that it's maximum points in the races, so it'll be 25 points for the class winner in the Super Sport Boxsters. And the race format this weekend, double header, effectively a triple header, because race 2 is a mini enduro, and that will afford double points because effectively it's twice the race distance. Shared cars will share the points as well, so if it's a 2-driver car, then the points will be shared between the drivers. It's a fascinating end to another great season of BRSCC Porsche racing, as Porter is about to be passed here by Ed Hayes, who goes through at Hollywood down into the Craner curves. And Ed Hayes, that's great news for Garry LAWRENCE, because it means that the gap goes out points-wise between himself and Andrew Porter. This could see Garry LAWRENCE take the championship lead. Garry drops 3 retirements, which is effectively no scores that he drops, whereas Andrew Porter is actually on 254.5 points, so drops a finish, and that's going to bite him in the bum this weekend. But anyway, we'll see how it all pans out. We've got a challenge on for the lead. Garry LAWRENCE looks one way, then the other. So he's looking racy from Garry LAWRENCE here. He'll know that the 47 car is not in the mix championship-wise. Man who finished in the second in the championship last year, James Coleman. Garry LAWRENCE is having a go and trying to get his nose in front. He does get his nose in front as they cross the line, but the racing line down into Redgate is held by James Coleman. So it's Coleman maintaining the lead. Gary's going to have a look in his rearview mirrors because he's got Ed Hayes right behind him as well. The important thing, though, I guess, for Garry Lawrence is going to be just to stay ahead of Andrew Porter here and then do the same thing once again in the final race of the weekend. Carl Rossin in the 41 car up ahead of Peter Smith. Peter, the championship leader in the 924s. He's only a point and a half ahead of Hugh Pert, who's not racing this weekend. And a little bit of a gap back to Chris Valentine in third place. But as Lloyd said in the introductions, the championship could go any way. Technically, Pete Smith leading the race because, of course, Carl Rossin's car, an invitation class car. Leaders coming down the straight, and Ed Hayes looking to try and catch up with Garry Lawrence. We've still got Andrew Porter running in fourth place. Looks like Nick Hull's lost a little bit of ground. Here he is in blue at the back of shot. Nick, in turn, has pulled out a fair bit of space over the chasers in the Super Sport box. There's Lee Bowden and Andrew Baker. So this one's settling down. We're about a quarter of the way into the race now. 20-minute race, good standard BRSCC format for these races. And it's going to be thrilling to see the Enduro a little bit later on with the pit stops. Added value for drivers, added value for the spectators here as well. So Coleman's still there. Garry Lawrence trying to close down on him. Along Starkey's, through Schwantz once again. Slight uphill climb. Now into McLean's, the right-hander, continue uphill into Coppice corner. And Coleman, who has been away racing in the Porsche Club Championship and took several wins in Class 2 of that as well. So no doubting his credentials. Runner-up to Adam Southgate last year. Good to see double champion Ed Hayes back in the mix as well. So drivers coming back to the championship. Andy Baker, another driver who came back. Double production champion, of course, in the Toyo Tires BRSCC Porsche Championship. Lee Bowden moved up from the productions last year. So across the line we go once again. And it's James Coleman still there in the 47 car. I've got to say, at the moment, Ed Hayes not closing down on Garry Lawrence. The Devon racer is potentially here getting into the championship lead. He will be on 23 points from here. Andrew Porter will pick up 19. So the way things stand at the moment, it is, as we head towards the last race of the year, going to be advantage Lawrence on drop scores. But again, anything can happen in the Enduro. I know there's some nerves around the paddock this weekend. Looking forward to that race. So Carl Rossin, this is good for Pete Smith, having Carl Rossin to race with this weekend, and Smith looking to underline his championship lead here in the 18 car. Looking to follow in the wheel tracks of Gavin Johnson, who was champion last year. Pip Hammond, the 2017 champion, and lady racer Linda Warren in 2016. Adam Croft picking it up the year before that, 2015. Adam now running the very impressive SimTrack simulator within Giannetta's premises up in Garforth, just outside Leeds. And I think back to Caterham racing as well. Second place closing up now, so it's James Coleman still in the lead coming towards us. Then Garry Lawrence. Ed Hayes is piling the pressure on. The double champion is trying to close down on the Devon race. It's good to see more cars out this weekend in the championship, and very much faith in the organisers being shown. I tell you what, James Coleman, though, not really under any pressure at all. We're heading up towards the halfway stage of this 20-minute race, and it is James Coleman still out front. Ed Hayes, though, has got the fastest lap of the race. That was on the first flying lap, lap 2. Garry Lawrence won't necessarily know about that. He will know in his head the championship positions, because he'll see Andrew Porter in his mirrors, and he's got to drive smoothly and keep his fingers crossed that he doesn't get a fourth retirement of the year. Retired at Snetterton on the 300 circuit on the 21st of April. And another one at Croft, very nearly getting the hat-trick at Croft, but had a retirement in the 7th of July. And then, okay at Brands, 2 second places at Brands Hatch. Andrew Porter taking the brace of wins there, as great driving by John Jones in 639. The Classic 924 moving across and allowing the Supersport Boxsters through. John Jones vying for the third position in the championship with Chris VALENTINE. And going back to the Garry LAWRENCE scenario, that third retirement happening on the Anglesey weekend, and didn't start race 2, so really the retirements and the non-start really hit heavily on him, but under big pressure here from Ed Hayes, who looks down the inside line. Ed teed that up well, and Garry LAWRENCE again will probably be doing the maths, so we need to do mathematics as well, because Lawrence is in third place, and that will relegate him from 23 points to 21. Andrew Porter still fourth, running on 19. Andy Pritchard and Chris VALENTINE engaged in battle. That is for second place in the 924s. Remember, Cole Rossin, the second 924 we see, but running in the invitation class. So this is a good battle going on for points between these two. Andrew Pritchard, who did the first 2 meetings of the season with us, in car with Chris VALENTINE, coming down the Wheatcroft straight, trying to close in and get that second position. It will be 12.5 points for the class winner in the 924s. And look at Chris VALENTINE round the outside line as they go out of Redgate down to Hollywood into the Crane of Curves. Takes second position in class. Great move from him. And some good racing still to be had from the 924 category. You can see James Coleman coming into shot now. So Coleman, having already passed John Jones, who's running fourth in the 924s, is starting to get into a bit of traffic. And again, very well behaved by Andy Pritchard, who moves across. Garry LAWRENCE here on board with the third place overall car and coming up. So needs to go back to championship points, and it's going to be 2 points gained here for Garry LAWRENCE if he stays where he is. I remember that means there'll only be half a point in it going into the last race. So really and truly, we're looking at, as Lawrence nips through on the inside line of Andrew Pritchard, it means that whoever is first, or whoever is ahead in the second race between Garry LAWRENCE and the current championship leader, Andrew Porter, will be champion. So it's all coming down to the last race, and it's that 40-minute enduro. And neither of those two drivers are having their car shared, so it's going to be grueling for them. But also, if either of them did, then it would be half points. So I don't think either of them can now afford to have a co-driver in that position anyway. In car again with Chris VALENTINE, and Chris looking very good for another podium. Remember, he was race winner, race 1 at Brands Hatch in July. Great shot of Andrew Porter nipping through, Chris giving him the room. Here's the leader in the 924s. And it's still Cole Rossin in second place. Rossin got the better of the starts. It was good to see Cole making a comeback to the championship at Anglesey. That was back in August. And Cole picking up a third and a second place in class. And you can see he's got his lights on and actually taking the race here to Pete Smith. Pete knows that his championship class points are safe here at the moment if he looks back in his mirrors, but he'll still want to beat the invitation class car. That's one of the great things about inter-class racing. Rossin having a good run here, looking on the outside line. Smith busy chasing, as across the line again goes James Coleman in lead position. Ed Hayes in black second. The green car of Garry LAWRENCE next up. LAWRENCE really has at the moment got the measure of Andrew Porter in this race. So things starting to come good at the moment for Garry LAWRENCE, and it's going to give us a fantastic finale in race number 2. Nick Hull still in 5th in blue, but there is Andrew Porter, man from Knaresborough, picked up his first win at Cadwell Park, race 3 at Cadwell, overturning or stopping the role of Garry LAWRENCE, who picked up a double win at Cadwell Park, and that was on the back of his win in race 3 at Snetterton earlier on in the season. And this is a view he probably doesn't really want. He's got relatively clear track in front of him at the moment. He'll want to be nearer to Garry LAWRENCE there in the number 3 car, but Lawrence running well, had a good Silverstone with second position in race 1. Andrew Porter winning that one, a brace of wins in races 2 and 3. Porter only having had one retirement so far this year, which was race 1 at Croft. Blue flags being shown for the 924s. So it is Garry Lawrence second, Andrew Porter, sorry, Garry Lawrence third, Andrew Porter fourth. And the race headed at the moment by two returnees, James Coleman and Ed Hayes, who are working their way through the traffic. Cole Ross in the next target for Garry Lawrence. We've only lost one car so far in this race, Anthony Hutchins, sadly. We haven't seen enough of him this weekend, but Anthony going out of the race on lap 8, sadly. And here's the onboard view again from Garry Lawrence. So poised to close up in the championship, but by my maths it's going to be just half a point. And look at the speed differential here and the handling as well. Through on the inside line he goes, passes Pete Smith, the championship leader. Pete didn't do the first 2 meetings with us, only joined the championship Cadwell, so had a lot of work to do to close in on the early championship leader in the 924s, Hugh Pert, which he did. And now looking to extend that lead. It's only actually a 1.5 point lead over Hugh Pert coming into this round, as I think I mentioned earlier on in the race. So Lawrence continues on his way. Andrew Porter in behind the two 924s. And we're into the last quarter of our opening race of the weekend here at Donington Park. So he goes Porter again and is going to pass with ease along the Wheatcross Straight, the race leader for the 924s. Smith here will pick up 13.5 points because he's got the fastest lap as well in his class, 1:28.091, averaging still over 80 miles an hour. The Supersport Boxsters, the speed differential is around about 10 miles an hour over the lap. Ed Hayes doing a 1:19.264, still the fastest lap of the race, shade under 90 miles an hour for Ed Hayes. Great to welcome him back into the championship. Past Andrew Baker there, and Andrew running in 7th position in the Supersport Boxster class, and this has been a good return for James Coleman. As we said, not race rusty, has been racing elsewhere, but qualifying second on the grid at a 1:19.8 as opposed to Garry Lawrence's 1:19.5, so we're 2.5 tenths between Lawrence and Coleman in the qualifying. Next target is going to be John Jones, who again sticks to the outside line. Great driving from John, who will be sharing that car with Ryan Lowry in race 2. And one of, I think we've got 4 cars that are going to have 2 drivers, and it is going to add another dimension very much to the championship. But James Coleman there, still trying to chip away at Ed Hayes' fastest lap, but it's not coming. He has built up a good gap, and he's some 5 seconds clear now of Ed Hayes in P2. So Coleman and Hayes, the returnees to the championship, both delivering here. It's Garry Lawrence in 3rd. And Lawrence still on to close that championship gap. Porter needs to get ahead of Lawrence, but at the moment there is a gap between the pair of them, but Porter trying everything he can to try and close in. Let's have a quick look at the fastest laps. Lawrence's best lap, a 1:20.39. Porter on his fastest lap, 1:23.7. So they're very close together, as they were in qualifying. But Porter slightly the quicker driver as we continue to focus on James Coleman, the race leader in the 47 car. Goes across the line once again. Clock ticking down. I reckon we might have 2 more laps of this one. Ed Hayes in 2nd. Here comes the 3rd place car, and it looks to me as if Andrew Porter is starting to close in on Garry Lawrence, but is that gap going to be too much to close on over the last couple of laps? Will we get a 3rd lap out of this? I don't know. It's going to be nip and tuck on the timing screen as John Jones is passed by those. Jones still running in 4th position in the red 639 car, 4th position in the 924 class. So Coleman out front. At the moment, I'm not seeing any improvements on any time. So the fastest laps of the race seem to be settled at the moment. Pete Smith got his on lap 12. Carl Rossin setting a fast one then as well. The conditions actually seem to be favouring faster laps from the Boxsters, from the 924s at the moment. And this, though, on board what could be a battle for third place and the championship lead for sure. So Garry LAWRENCE out front, and it is Andrew Porter that we ride on board with, coming out of Coppice Corner, down the straight into the Fogarty S's. Gap has closed up, and you can see Garry LAWRENCE here. To some extent, he's going to have to look in his mirrors, and I tell you what, Garry LAWRENCE is possibly going to be a nervous driver here. Well, I was right, it was 2 laps to go. We're on to the last lap, and the gap has come down. Is it going to be enough, though, for the chaser? He's going to be fired up championship-wise to close down on Garry LAWRENCE. This is 3rd and 4th on the road, but the battle for the outright championship. And at the moment, LAWRENCE is going to close down to within half a point by my maths. In car again with Andrew Porter. A bit of water on the windscreen as well. That could upset the apple cart. Closes up big time through the old hairpin. Clatters the curbs. No issue with track limits from any of the boys here being shown on the timing screen today. Up through Schwantz, climbing uphill. They continue the climb. If you've ever been to Donington Park, it's a good up and down place to wander around. And now closing in, Porter very definitely closing in on Garry LAWRENCE, and he's going to mount a challenge, I think, here. He's right with him. Now Garry LAWRENCE, I'm sure, is capable of holding his nerve. They go into Coppice for the last time, and it's LAWRENCE still there in 3rd place. Meanwhile, the checkered flag is being readied for James Coleman, who will take the win on his return to the championship. There's the checker. Coleman wins. Ed Hayes is in 2nd position. And what about the battle for the championship lead? Here it comes. Garry LAWRENCE is there. He's going to close down to within half a point of Andrew Porter as they cross the line. That was a significant result, I think, for Garry LAWRENCE. Porter in 4th. Nick Hull still running in 5th. I think the pair of them here are going to acknowledge each other. So it was Coleman from Hayes and LAWRENCE in the Supersport Boxsters. Nick Hull 5th. Lee Bowden in 6th place from Andrew Baker. Non-finisher Anthony Hutchins. Fastest lap was Ed Hayes in the 924s. A win for Pete Smith from the invitation class runner Carl Rossin. 2nd in 924, Andy Pritchard from Chris Valentine and John Jones. Fastest lap, Pete Smith.
James, good to see you back in the championship, and what a way to come back with a win.
Yeah, that was a good little race, that, actually. Yeah. Qualifying was a bit manic, but we still managed to get on the front row, which was nice. Got a decent start, got in front of Garry. A few airy moments because the back end was a bit light, but no, all good. We got a little bit of a gap, backed him into Ed a bit, and they did their business, so I got a bit of a gap and just kept my laps consistent and drove away a little bit, which was nice.
Yeah, and it's good to see you back at the front of the field, mixing it up a little bit. We're going to see you out there at the front tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the weather's doing. It's just started to rain now, so we'll see what it does tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Well, we wish you all the best out there tomorrow. Congratulations once again on your victory. It's great to see you back.
That's great. Thank you.
Garry, 3rd place. You had a tough battle out there. Lots going on, but it seems like you're thinking more about the championship than taking the wins.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a lot slippier out there this afternoon than it was in qualifying. The thing was just to come in front of Andy, which managed to do.
Peter, congratulations. A manic race out there, especially with the weather playing up. You got in just before it started to come down.
Yeah, there was only one lap where it started to drizzle a little bit, but you're kind of looking in at the sky where the clouds were. Do you lift off? Do you just take it steady? There was a little bit of a gap between me and Carl by then, so there was no heroics.